Hello guys, welcome to the knowledge domain, the concept of life sciences and biotechnology. In this lecture series, we are focusing on the respiration. So in the previous one, we have the background of the various parts of the lungs and what is the respiratory membrane. So the factors that affect the rate of gas diffusion through the respiratory membrane are following: the thickness of the membrane, the surface area of the membrane, that means the entire surface area of the alveoli where the exchange of the gases been taking place, and the diffusion coefficient that we have already discussed for the oxygen, CO2, of the gases in the membrane, and the partial pressure difference in alveoli or in the blood plasma. So these are the four things: thickness, surface area, diffusion coefficient of the gases to be diffused, and the partial pressure of the gases across the respiratory membrane. So CO2 diffuses 20 times as rapidly as O2. So if the O2 will take 20 minutes to diffuse, as an example, then CO2 will take 1 minute. Then oxygen diffuses about twice as rapidly as nitrogen. So the diffusion capacity of nitrogen is lowest among these three. Respiratory membrane diffusing capacity, which is defined as the volume of gas that will diffuse to the membrane each minute for a pressure difference of the 1 millimeter mercury. Okay. So the diffusing capacity of oxygen is volume 21 ml per minute per millimeter mercury. The thickness of this respiratory membrane is 0.2 micron in some cases, and it is almost 0.6 micron, the longest. The average is the 0.6 micron. The surface area that we have discussed earlier, that is 70 square meter. It is like a 2-bedroom flat of the entire surface area present in the lungs alveoli that is responsible for diffusion of gases. Then 60 to 140 ml of blood at any given time is present in the lungs, and pulmonary capillaries average diameter is 5 microns. So this capillaries, the diameter is 5 microns. So the respiratory membrane average thickness is 0.6 micron, surface area is 70 square meter. At a given time, there is 60 to 140 ml of blood is present in the lungs, and the pulmonary capillary diameter is almost 5 microns. So the RBC has to squeeze through the small capillaries. So the diffusion gases to the respiratory membrane, that is known as the ventilation perfusion ratio. So it is the respiratory exchange when there is imbalance between alveolar ventilation and the alveolar blood. So the ventilation perfusion ratio is VA by Q. So VA is the alveolar ventilation and the Q is the blood flow. This V bar is the venous normal blood, normal venous blood. So we know that in the venous the partial pressure of CO2 is 45, partial pressure of O2 is 40 milliliter mercury. Right? So when there is no alveolar ventilation, it is zero. Means whatever gas is coming through the alveoli, through the plasma, because there is no ventilation, the CO2 is not being carried away to the atmosphere. Okay. So the ventilation perfusion ratio is equal to 0. This is the normal scenario when there is a proper ventilation. So the partial pressure of O2 in the alveoli, we know that it is 104 milliliter mercury, and partial pressure of CO2 is 40 milliliter mercury. That is in equilibrium with the blood plasma in the pulmonary capillaries and the alveoli. So when there is no blood flow and there is alveolar ventilation, I mean there is no CO2 is coming. So the ventilation perfusion ratio is infinite. because there is no blood flow. So partial pressure of CO2 is 0. Okay. So when there is no blood flow, partial pressure of CO2 is 0. Because it is like the atmospheric scenario, because whatever gas is present in the alveoli, they all are ventilated with the repeated breathing that we have discussed earlier, and the entire air of the alveoli will be replaced with the atmospheric air. So it is like the partial pressure of the atmosphere. So the opposite is true here. Because there is no ventilation, so whatever the distribution of the gases in the venous blood is the distribution of gases in the alveoli when there is no alveolar ventilation. So this is the ventilation perfusion ratio, that is the partial pressure of O2, and the CO2, how it is determined based on blood flow and the alveolar ventilation. So this is the respiratory membrane. So this is on this side, it is the arterial end, this is the venous end, but this is pulmonary. So arterial is from the right atrium, so it is the venous blood actually, means that is collected through the vena cava, and the partial pressure of O2 is the lowest, 40 millimeter of mercury, and because of the ventilation, the O2 partial pressure is increasing to 104 millimeter mercury because it is coming in contact with the atmospheric air, where the partial pressure of O2 is 104, so it is in equilibrium here and it reaches 104. That is the atmospheric air. That is means we can see here in this graph that here in the beginning of the pulmonary capillaries, the partial pressure of O2 is 40. As soon as it is reaching the pulmonary capillaries, there is the sharp increase in the partial pressure of O2 or O2 concentration in the pulmonary capillaries, and it reaches an equilibrium where it equalizes with the partial pressure of the atmosphere or the partial pressure of oxygen present in the alveoli, 104 in the middle of it. So the same thing we can see here. This is the systemic venous blood. Partial pressure of O2 is 40. As soon as it is reaching the pulmonary capillary, there is sharp increase in the O2 concentration in the capillaries, and because of the there is some deoxygenated blood mixing because of the pulmonary sound, there is a decrease in the O2 concentration. So from the 104 to it is 95 millimeter of mercury. In the systemic arterial blood, it remains 95%, the 95 millimeter of mercury. And when it reaches to the tissue, there is sharp decrease in the partial pressure of O2 as it is being consumed for the cellular respiration, and it is reaches the same value of 40 in the systemic venous blood. So O2 diffusion in the peripheral tissue capillaries in the cells. So this is in the arterial that we have discussed earlier. The partial pressure of O2 is 95. The tissue partial pressure of oxygen is 23 millimeter of mercury. So this oxygen is diffused into the tissues, and 95 becomes 40 millimeter of mercury. That is the means the partial pressure of the oxygen present in the tissue. So it is the equilibrium level in the venous blood. So this is a graph in which the blood flow, how it determines the interstitial fluid partial pressure of O2 depending on the O2 consumption. So this is a normal O2 consumption, this is the normal blood flow. So here it is 40. So if the O2 composite, O2 consumption will increase by 4 times, then in the normal blood flow, the partial pressure of O2 will be almost 12. So to maintain this partial pressure of 40 oxygen, so the ventilation should, depending on the O2 consumption and the ventilation, the interstitial fluid partial pressure is regulated. So when it is a normal ventilation, in the 100% we can say partial pressure of O2 is 40, and when the consumption is less, there are more O2 present in the interstitial fluid in the same blood flow, and with the increase in the blood flow, there is an increase in the O2 consumption, and the increase in the O2 partial pressure. So this is the CO2 uptake, and this is the arterial end of the capillaries. So partial pressure of CO2 is 40 millimeter of mercury. Tissues, the partial pressure of CO2 is 45 millimeter of mercury. So CO2 composition or the concentration in the blood, it increases to 45. That is in equilibrium with the tissue interstitial CO2 concentration. So that we can see the opposite of it in the pulmonary capillaries. So here it is 45 millimeter of mercury. It is in the pulmonary artery. So it is slightly decreasing to partial pressure CO2 to 40 millimeter of mercury. That is the partial pressure of CO2 in the alveoli air. So the same thing is here. This is the pulmonary capillary blood, and this is the partial pressure of CO2 from the 45. Here you can see the same thing. It is very sharp decrease in the partial pressure of CO2 from the 45 to the 40 as soon as it is in the pulmonary capillaries. So effect of blood flow and metabolic rate on the peripheral tissue, partial pressure of CO2. So here you can see this is the blood flow, and depending on the metabolism, how the interstitial fluid CO2 is changing. So in the normal one, this is the 45. But if the metabolism will be less, then partial pressure of CO2 will be less. And if the metabolism will be high, partial pressure of CO2 in the interstitial fluid will be high. Okay. And depending on the blood flow, the partial pressure will change, as we have discussed earlier for the O2 also. So for the normal blood flow, and when the metabolism is 10 times of the normal, the partial pressure of the CO2 in the interstitial fluid will be almost 95 instead of 45. So it is a product of a complex system of the metabolism, blood flow. In case of the interstitial fluid, CO2, concentration of the partial pressure of CO2. This is the hemoglobin dissociation curve, 80 to 120 millimeter of mercury, like we find in the alveoli. Almost 95% of the hemoglobins are saturated with the oxygen, and the when partial pressure of oxygen is between the 20 to 40, the oxygen means the hemoglobin saturation is from the 20 to 60%. And this is the volume of the oxygen. This is the 100 ml of the blood. In the 15 gram of hemoglobin is present in the 100 ml of blood. 100 ml of blood, 15 gram of hemoglobin. Each gram of hemoglobin contains 1.34 ml of O2. Okay. But in chemically pure hemoglobin, the 1.3 ml of O2 can be carried. But in case of the real scenario, there is a presence of matte hemoglobin. So the average oxygen carrying capacity of each gram of hemoglobin is 1.34 ml instead of 1.39. So if you calculate this 1.34 in 15 gram, it will be almost 20 ml of oxygen. So 100 ml of blood, 15 gram of hemoglobin, and 20 ml of the oxygen. This is the pressure of oxygen in the blood that determines the oxygen in the blood percentage. So if it is, this is the venous blood. In the venous blood, there are the less oxygen. And in case of the normal arterial blood, we know here it is almost 20 ml. In the normal venous blood, it is almost 15 ml of oxygen. and in the exercise time there is almost means 4.3 ml of the CO2. The 4.2 ml of the oxygen is present for 100 ml of blood. So this is the transfer of the CO2. It is by three ways. One is the dissolved CO2 7%. Then hemoglobin binding with the CO2 is 23% and the bicarbonate 70%. So the CO2 is the product of the cellular metabolism that is diffusing into the blood. So this is the RBC. So this CO2 is like this 7%. It is solubilized in the plasma of the blood. Then hemoglobin CO2. CO2 plus hemoglobin. This is the hemoglobin CO2. So CO2 is carried in the blood like this by 23%. And this one we have discussed in detail. CO2 plus water in the presence of the carbonic anhydrase results in the bicarbonate, that is a salt. So it will be dissociated into, it is a, it is donating a proton. So it is actually weak acid. So bicarbonate is dissociating into the SU3 minus and the H plus. And this is the major fraction or the major way that is being used for the CO2 transport in the blood. Okay. So this can mean this is in the RBC. So this can diffuse into the plasma also bicarbonate. So bicarbonate is found in case of the RBC as well as in the plasma. So this is the partial pressure of O2 at 40 millimeter of mercury, partial pressure of O2 at 100 millimeter of mercury. There is the CO2 in the blood in the percentage. So when the partial pressure of O2 is low, you can find there are more CO2. Okay. And when the partial pressure of O2 is higher, you can find the less CO2 in the blood. So the ratio of the CO2 output to the O2 uptake, it is respiratory exchange ratio, and this is the rate of the CO2 output divided by the rate of the O2 uptake. This is the respiratory exchange ratio, as we can see here. So depending on the O2 concentration, because hemoglobin binds to the O2 also, so that's why the O2 concentration also determines the CO2 carrying capacity of the blood. Next, the organization of the respiratory center. There are three centers. One is the dorsal respiratory group that is mostly responsible for inspiration. This is found in the medulla oblongata. Then there is another one is the ventral respiratory group. It is mostly responsible for expiration, but also to some extent is inspiration. And the third one is the pneumotaxis center that determines the rate and the depth of the breathing, and it is found in the pons of the brain. So the most important thing is the dorsal respiratory group that is responsible for the inspiration is getting the signal through the vagus and the glossopharyngeal nerves, and the signal is coming from or the received by the peripheral chemoreceptors, baroreceptors, and several types of the receptors in the lungs, like the stress receptors, which is called the hearing neural inflation reflex. And this is the when the lungs is stressed at least 3 times, then only means it will give the signal to the dorsal respiratory group. So for the stretching of the lungs, it has to be stretched at least 3 times, or there will be breathing should be more than 1.5 liter per breath. Okay. So this is the chemoreceptor area of the medulla oblongata. This is an additional respiratory control center other than the three area discussed earlier. So the role of the respiration is to maintain proper concentration of the O2, CO2, and H plus in the tissues. So how this chemosensitive area that is found in the medulla oblongata is controlling the respiration. So there are here the chemosensitive area that can sense CO2 and the H plus. So H plus cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. So H plus will the CO2 plus H2O, they will form the bicarbonate, and this bicarbonate it dissociates into H plus and SO3 minus, and when it is present in the chemosensitive area, then it will give the signal to increase the ventilation, so to remove the excess acid or the CO2. So this H plus cannot cross the blood-brain barrier, so it will bind or it will form the bicarbonate that will be form the CO2 and the water, and this CO2 can cross the blood-brain barrier, so that in the medulla area it will again dissociate into the H plus and SO3 minus, and this chemosensitive area is recognizes the presence of the H plus, and thus the quantity or the partial pressure of the CO2 in the plasma is actually responsible for controlling the ventilation, that is responsible for excreting or removing the CO2 from the alveoli of the lungs. So this is the graph, this is the partial pressure of the CO2 here. So this is an experiment where the CO2 concentration increases, and how the increase of the CO2 concentration each regulating the alveolar ventilation is depicted here. You can see we already know from the beginning the partial pressure of CO2 in the alveolar, the pulmonary capillaries is 40. So when the CO2 concentration is less, means 30 to 40, there is a steady increase in the ventilation. So when it is further increasing more than means 40, there is a sharp increase in the rate of the ventilation to remove the CO2 from the blood. Similarly, this is the decreasing order of the pH. So when the pH was decreased, you can see the decrease in the pH, means there is an increase in the H plus concentration. So with the increase in the H plus concentration after pH 7.2, there is a sharp increase in the rate of the ventilation. So this is a reverse way of understanding how the pH or the H plus concentration and the CO2 are regulating or the controlling the alveolar ventilation. So along with the H plus and the CO2, the oxygen concentration is also responsible in controlling the rate of the ventilation or the alveolar ventilation. So these peripheral chemoreceptors are found in the carotid body. You can see here the bifurcation of the carotid blood vessels as well as in the aortic bodies that is found in the systemic aorta. So this aortic body, this is the vagus nerve. It is carrying the signal from the chemoreceptors found in these aortic bodies, and these carotid bodies, and this signal is taken by the hearing nerve and finally touches to the glossopharyngeal nerve, and it reaches the medulla. So from the aortic body it is the vagus, the signal is reaching the medulla oblongata, and from the carotid body it is the glossopharyngeal nerve to the hearing nerve. So here one thing important to notice that these carotid bodies and the aortic bodies, these cells are also receiving blood through a special arteries from this aorta or the carotid artery that is immediately originated here, and they receive almost 20 times the weight of their body themselves. So whatever blood is flooding these cells, aortic bodies or the carotid body cells, seems like there is no change in the CO2 concentration or the O2 concentration, and it is very close to the left ventricle, means the oxygenated blood. So it is like the fresh oxygenated blood. So they are sensing the fresh oxygenated blood. So if in this case they will find that there is a decrease in the oxygen concentration, then these signals is transmitted to the medulla oblongata to control the alveolar ventilation. Okay, so this is the arterial partial pressure, how it is controlling the carotid body nerve impulse per second. This is the normal ventilation, like. So when the partial pressure of O2 is normal, means it is 104, then you have the normal signal. But when the partial pressure of O2 is decreasing from almost 90, then there is a huge signal that is transferred to the medulla oblongata to increase the rate of ventilation or increasing the oxygenation of the blood. And if it is more than 100 partial pressure of O2, means ventilation or the impulse is weak, so it does not need the ventilation to be increased. Rather, alveolar ventilation is decreased because the impulse is smaller. So if the partial pressure of O2 is less than 90, then it is sending the signal to the medulla oblongata to increase the rate of alveolar ventilation because the partial pressure of O2 is less, so that because of the ventilation, the blood will be saturated with the oxygen. So impulse rate is particularly sensitive to change in the arterial partial pressure of O2 in the range of 60 to 30 millimolar. So how this oxygen sensing is working? So this is known as a glomus cell. So it has a oxygen sensing, partial pressure of oxygen sensing potassium channel. So when the partial pressure of oxygen when the partial pressure of oxygen lowers, then this potassium channel closes, and because the potassium channel is closed, the potassium cannot go out of the cell. So the positive charge inside the cell keep on increasing, result in the depolarization, and this potassium channel closed that result in the depolarization lead to the activation of the voltage activated calcium channels. Because of that, there is the influx of the calcium in the glomus cells, and because of this, there is a secretion of the acetylcholine, that is a neurotransmitter, and the nerves present in the glomus cell, they take the signal that partial pressure of oxygen has already fallen, so that there will be an increase in the alveolar ventilation to increase the oxygenation of the blood. So in the beginning or the earlier days, it was known that acetylcholine and dopamine are responsible neurotransmitter to sense the lower partial pressure of oxygen, but it has also been shown that hypoxia and ATP are also responsible in sensing or this providing this signal that the partial pressure of O2 is less. So next is the effect of a low arterial partial pressure of O2, means the studying the reverse way when the partial pressure of CO2 is constant at 40, like the arterial blood. So this is the partial pressure of O2, that is 100. So when the partial pressure of O2 is reducing from the 60 below 60, you can see there is the increase in the ventilation. So partial pressure of CO2 and the H plus is kept constant, and only the partial pressure of O2 has been changed, and it has been shown that when it is lowering than 60, it actually gives a strong signal for increasing the alveolar ventilation. So next, in this case, there is the two pH conditions. So this greens are the pH 7.3 and the red one are the pH 7.4. So you can see when the pH is less, means H plus is high in concentration, then there is a increase in the alveolar ventilation earlier than the higher pH. This is one scenario, and another is the partial pressure of CO2. When the oxygen is either 40, 50, 60 or 100, you can see that when partial pressure of oxygen is increasing, the alveolar ventilation is decreasing. But this is the increase in the partial pressure of CO2, there is a sharp increase in the alveolar ventilation at each fixed partial pressure of O2 concentration. It is same in the higher case also. So the conclusion is the partial pressure of CO2 when it is increased, there is a sharp increase in the alveolar ventilation. And with the decrease in the pH or the increase in the H plus concentration, also there is a sharp increase in the alveolar ventilation. So in summary, the decrease in the O2 concentration that is sensed by the glomerulus cells present in the aortic bodies and the carotid bodies, the CO2 increase in the CO2 concentration or the increase in the H plus concentration in the plasma send the signals to the controlling centers present in the pons and the medulla oblongata to increase the alveolar ventilation, to excrete CO2 in the pulmonary capillaries, and to oxygenate blood in the present in the pulmonary capillaries.